The returning Found Verdict from Vault of Glass is the newest addition to the aggressive shotgun archetype. An archetype, of course, that Felwinter's Lie is pretty commonly accepted as the king. So in this video, we have quite a bit to talk about to go over all of the differences between these two shotguns, and if it's worth your time to actually farm for a Found Verdict and use it maybe over the Felwinters. So there's a few key differences between the Found Verdict and Felwinters that we're going to be going over, firstly starting with the stat comparison, the stat differentials, and how actually the Found Verdict can get some pretty high range, and what is the true impact of that high range, what's it actually doing in comparison to Felwinter's range. So we're going to go over that. We've also got Felwinter's shot package versus the longer barrel on the Found Verdict. We also have the difference of assault mag and rate of fire that the Felwinter's is unable to get, and then alternate perks like Demolitionist or Killing Wind that the Found Verdict can get that Felwinter's is unable to. The main difference in stats is the ability to go for the same range as Felwinter with the Found Verdict, which is 47, with at the same time getting 21 or higher handling, so it'd have 47 range and 54 handling versus that of Felwinter's 33. Or you can go for 9 higher range, bringing it to 56 versus the 47, and only 12 higher handling, which would be 45 versus 33. And all of those stat comparisons are with full choke on the Found Verdict, and for some that might sell you on it. A pretty considerably higher base handling is pretty good, especially since quick draw is no longer on these aggressives, and you need as much base handling combined with probably surplus to get you as close to what quick draw was as possible. And 54 handling plus even 1 stack of surplus, so that brings you to about 64, is a lot better than 33 plus 1 stack, which is 43. So overall, the handling could be a selling factor already. But there is an alternate case for the Found Verdict where it can get really high range, capping out at 65 if you do forego full choke. It's not tied to full choke like Felwinter's. But the question now is that range actually useful? And this is where we're going to have to start looking at some consistency tests. So Felwinter's with opening shot at 10 meters dealt 21 or 22 damage pellets because of the way that the game rounds the damage, I'm sure, and I was able to get minimum 4, best case 8 pellets landed per shot, and was not able to one-hit kill at this range. At 9 meters, however, I dealt 23 and 22 damage, which is the max damage of the aggressive archetype, and I was able to get a rare 9 pellet one-hit kill, that is the requirement, and I landed on average 7 to 9 pellets per shot. For 8 meters, because I believe this is the most consistent and farthest range that this archetype can one-shot at, I tried a little bit of a bigger sample size, still relatively small, but tried to stretch it out a little bit and did 20 shots of each shotgun. And with the Felwinter's Lie, I was able to get 10 out of 20 one-hit kills with an average of 8.1 pellets landed per shot. That number is not entirely meaningful, but what it's trying to explain is that the minimum amount of pellets I hit was 6, and I hit that 3 times, and occasionally I would hit 7, but the majority of the time I was hitting 8 or 9. So I was either one-hit killing or I was at least making them absolute one-shot. Now with my Found Verdict, I was able to get my hands on that had max range, so 65 range, but no opening shot. At 10 meters, I only dealt 19 and 20 damage per pellet, which is less than the Felwinter's with opening shot and a much lower range stat. And at this range, I was hitting about 6 to 8 pellets per shot. At 9 meters, I dealt the full damage once again, 23 and 22 damage pellets. I was able to get a 9 pellet one-hit kill, but it was rare, just like the Felwinter's, and I landed 7 to 9 pellets per shot. Now, if we go look at 8 meters, which again, I did a little bit more in depth, I landed 13 out of 20 one-hit kills in 20 shots, and that gives us an average of 8.4 pellets landed per shot. Again, not an incredibly meaningful number, but what that means is I landed only 6 pellets only once, and other times hit 7 pellets 3 times, and every other time I was hitting 8 or 9 pellets per shot. So in this incredibly small sample size, the Found Verdict was actually landing 9 pellets more often than that of the Felwinter's Lie, with its higher average pellets landed. Now, although I'm trying to get some idea of consistency here in comparison, we have to remember that this is all random. It's RNG. Shotgun pellet spreads, especially on the Found Verdict, are RNG. Sure, the Felwinter's pattern is a lot more consistent because of shot package, but the way that it comes out, I guess the rotation of it, is still random, I believe. So it's really hard to tell consistency unless I think I were to fire like 1,000 to 5,000 shots and really see what the outcome was. And while I may do that one day when I'm really bored, that day is not today. There are a few things I'm trying to illustrate here though. The 65 range found verdict with opening shot actually doesn't do as well at range at the 10 meter mark, where it's the more extended range where you're expecting not to get a one-hit kill, than the Felwinters with opening shot. Which means that difference from a few tests I did, I'm expecting that it's actually a plus 25 or 30 range difference for when you have opening shot active on a shotgun. Secondly, at 10 meters or more extended ranges where your high range stat is allowing you to maintain full damage, you're still not going to be able to consistently one-hit kill. And well, why is that? It's because your pellet spread is too large. You're not going to be able to land a lot of pellets. Instead, you're maximizing the benefit of every single pellet you land in terms of their individual damage, which is the benefit of having very high range. Here are some damage tests that I did to look at damage drop off and see when that happens on each pellet. On my 47 range found verdict with no opening shot, damage drop off started at 9.1 meters, and at 10 meters it dealt 18 and 19 damage per pellet. The 65 range found verdict with no opening shot had damage drop off start at around 9.8 meters with 19 and 20 damage per pellet at 10 meters. I later happened to get a 56 range found verdict with opening shot, and that was able to deal the full 22 to 23 damage at 10 meters, and damage drop off actually started at around, I want to say 10.5 meters, and at 11 meters it even still dealt 19 to 20 damage per pellet. So we can expect that this roll with opening shot active actually had around 70, maybe 80 range. So it still maintained very high damage at some pretty extended ranges. Problem is, once again, is you aren't going to one-hit kill at that range. But if you do just care about how easy and consistently you can tap someone once with a hand cannon and swap and clean them up, or just map a weak target, well, investing in the range stat will maximize on the damage of each of your individual pellets. So while many not might land, you are still maximizing on the damage of the few that do. I think this creates a really interesting trade-off dynamic. On one hand, you could say, well, my one-hit kill range isn't really being affected, so I'm gonna go for other things like handling or other utility-based perks like assault mag, or even maybe forego opening shot and just go for something like demolitionist, which is possible on the found verdict. Or alternatively, do you still stack as much range as you can because you know it's going to affect your ability to kill from deep against a weak target consistently, or your ability to damage swap off of a hand cannon and extend your one-hit kill range consistently? It's pretty interesting, and I don't think there's a right answer here. It really comes down to, I think, what you value more or perceive to be better for your play. I really don't want to be repetitive here, but I want to be very clear. Again, the point of range on a shotgun isn't exactly to improve your one-hit kill range, it's to improve the damage per pellet at range, so you don't incur damage sooner at range, so you have further range until you get damage drop off, and you get to maximize on the damage per pellet that will land at range because not as many are going to land. The other dynamic between these two shotguns is shot package versus a longer barrel. And yes, I did test it. Technically speaking, the longer barrel on the found verdict does increase your range. And it's because I believe the shot starts at the end of the barrel, or perhaps the cone starts at the end of the barrel, and that's actually really important. The benefit of shot package is the fact that you know that you have to aim dead center mass, and you're going to have your pellets evenly dispersed the majority of the time through your accuracy cone. So if you're aiming dead center, it's going to be very consistent within its optimal range. I would even say it's so consistent that it actually requires you to have better aim, and it might punish you for not aiming exactly where you need to. But unlike D1, just to be clear here, the shot package perk does not alter the size of your accuracy cone. Only things like full choke reduce the spread of the pellets in the cone, and things like accuracy boosting perks like opening shot tighten the accuracy cone, which is the area in which the pellets can spread within. The found verdict doesn't have shot package, so there's going to be times where the pellets are going to be more clumped in one area than another, more randomly spread out sometimes, and that can work for or against you at times, of course, because it's random. But what the found verdict does have going for it is if, and it's a big if, we can't know for sure, but logically this would make sense to me, if the weapon starts the shot from the end of the barrel is closer to the target, so you not only get, sure, a tiny little bit more range, but I believe your accuracy cone would start at the end of the barrel. And that to me is significant, because if your accuracy cone is starting further out, which means closer to the target than the Felwinter, that means the accuracy cone won't be quite as wide at the range of the target as it would be at Felwinter's. And even if that's a tiny difference, I think it still has the potential to make a difference and allow you to just map a target. Sometimes that could be the difference between you edging out in a shotgun fight and one-hitting your opponent. Now that we got all that mumbo jumbo out of the way, we can really start talking about rolls, which gets pretty unique for the found verdict. I think ultimately you still want full choke, because even if you are getting more range, you want to have the tightest pellet spread possible, because if you're landing more pellets, that matters more than having more range. So sure, maximize on that range as much as possible if you believe in the value of range and your pellets doing more damage at range. But ultimately, you still want to land more pellets than anything. So full choke, considering it has no penalty to any stats, I think is undeniably the best. You could argue, well, what if you hit a headshot with a pellet or a few pellets? Sure, that might happen once in a while, but that's not something consistent, and we want to make our weapon be as consistent as possible for every shot, every engagement. So full choke would be the best barrel in my opinion. In the next slot, I'd still go with accurized rounds. Range is still important. I still want to have the best damage per pellet possible in the majority of scenarios. But if you're interested in the difference between that and assault mag, as Felwinters can't get that, you shoot 6 frames faster with assault mag than without it. If you think that's a big enough difference, go for assault mag. Me personally, I don't believe so I'll go for accurized. I think in the next slot, it's pretty self-explanatory. Surplus is going to be the option that most people want, unless you're using a specific build that has a handling boosting exotic, you might want to go for slide shot. In the last column, I think the majority of people will want opening shot, and I don't believe killing wind is very good, as you need a kill to activate it, and it's only plus 20 range, which is not bad, but opening shot gets that pretty much all the time. And more importantly than the range, opening shot tightens your accuracy cone, which means more pellets being landed more regularly and consistently, and potentially more frequent deep one-hit kills. Alternatively, this is a bit more of a niche option, but Demolitionist is a phenomenal perk on special weapons. It's usually easier and quicker to get special weapon kills, and it can give you a lot more ability uptime, which actually complements Surplus as well. So I'm interested in this a lot. Some people might not be, but this is another great perk, and it separates it from Felwinters. For your Masseric, it's really up to preference and what you value. Do you want to really maximize the damage per pellet at range with the range masterwork, or do you want to maximize on handling, because you might not be able to keep Surplus up all the time at the max value? This is probably an overload of information, and I've done my best to organize it decently, but I probably still failed. So I leave you with some questions to ask yourself, and if you say yes to the majority of these, you might want to farm for a found verdict. Do you value more handling? Do you value slightly more damage per pellet at range, even though it doesn't affect your one-hit kill range? Do you value 6 frames faster rate of fire? Do you value Demolitionist as a perk, even if it costs you opening shot? Is the longer barrel effect or theory on range and cones more significant to you than less range but a consistent pellet spread in place to aim? Are you willing to put the time in to get a perfect version of this shotgun for what's realistically probably just a small benefit in performance? Because if found verdict is better than Felwinter's, we're really getting to the point where it's just a little bit better, and it's still debatable. For me, I see this as valuable, so I'm gonna farm for one, because I think what it brings to the table is better than Felwinter's in my opinion. But honestly, for the majority, either of these are probably going to be great. I know I've kept you guys so long already, but a quick note, I'm glad to see a lot of people have been liking these short informational videos. I'm really enjoying making them, and they're allowing me to make more frequent content that I'm still proud of and enjoy making, and I'm able to deliver you guys that information on new weapons ASAP that I believe you're looking for without any sort of fluff. And then it fills the gap for the times that I need to make much larger videos and discussions like this one. So hopefully it's been enjoyable, and thank you for supporting me. Trying new things, it looks like it's working, so thank you guys for supporting me. Take it easy.